Hi everyone, it's Catherine. Welcome back to my channel. Today, let's get into my March plan with me. So I'm using a dot grid notebook from Notebook Therapy. It's A5 size, and this one is the Tsuki Falling Star dot grid notebook. I will link it down below if you're interested. So here we go. The first thing I'm going to do is check my grid spacing cheat sheet and divide my page into quarters using a pencil. I don't need the lines to be perfectly straight. What I'm really doing here is giving myself a way to keep my quote and any other elements on the page centered and really placed where I want them. Since I really can't see enough of the page to do that on my own, I like to use guidelines. I'm writing the quote first in a Pigma Micron Fineliner. This is a waterproof fineliner, which I will link for you. I'm going to be adding some watercolor, but I need the guidelines, and once the paint goes down, I won't be able to see the dots to make my guidelines, and I also need to erase the guidelines before I paint because otherwise the guidelines will be permanent, and I don't want them to be there permanently. So I put the quote in first so I could get that placed correctly, made sure to use waterproof ink, and that way when I lay my watercolor down, nothing will smudge, but things will also be placed where I want them. So now I'm just mixing up a nice golden yellow color. I thought for a nice cozy library theme that would be so nice, and it really is. It's a bit intense, a little more intense than I had intended it to be, but I really enjoy the golden yellow. I'm not using tons of water here. This is not watercolor paper, so I want to make sure that I'm not going to get too much water and warp my pages too much. But I really enjoy that color and that texture that I get from watercolor that I really can't get from markers. And I'm going to do about half of the title page as well in the same golden yellow color. I'm going for a cozy, warm library vibe here, and I think this yellow color gives me that library at sunset feel. So now I am choosing the stickers I'll be using. I have the Plants and Pages monthly kit from Planning with Kay, as well as the decorative sheets that can go along with that. I have a Tombow dual brush pen in a nice brown, nice deep brown color. And I'm just taking my ruler because I can't see the dots at this point, and I'm using the ruler and the side of the page to help me draw nice straight lines to make bookshelves. I'm also taking a clamp and clamping down my page there. I don't know if you could see that, but it was starting to roll up on me. Um, So now that I have one shelf drawn, I am just putting the stickers down. And I'm doing this so that I can keep my shelves nice and even. And I don't have to worry about whether my stickers are too tall or too short because I've already put them on before I drew the next shelf. I can make the next shelf exactly the right height from the previous shelf. And that just makes my life a lot easier. It would probably be a lot faster to draw all of the shelves and then place the stickers, but I'd rather be able to put down the stickers I want and not have to worry about the height of the next shelf rather than having to draw them all and worry about speed. And you know, this video is nice and sped up for your benefit, so you don't have to sit through the hours it took me to do this. And it did. This, just for full disclosure here, this video had over 5 hours of raw footage, so this really is sped up quite a bit. So if you're a little bit slower or you're new also and it takes you a little while, please don't be frustrated. I sped this up tremendously to make it a video that wasn't ridiculously long so that you all would enjoy watching it. So if you are wondering, the quote I chose to start off this month is The library is inhabited by spirits that come out of the pages at night. And this is by Isabel Allende. I just love thinking about how the spirits of books come out of the pages at night. So I am putting the final touches on this quote page. And then I'm going to move on to my March cover page, which is the page right next to this page. So we're not really going anywhere yet. I took my brush pen and I made a slightly taller brown sort of shelf. What I'm going for here is like one of those metal desks, one of those metal teacher desks kind of things that you might see in a library or in a school, in a classroom. And because I just didn't really know how to draw that and didn't really know how to make it look exactly what I was thinking about, I went with blocks of color. And so you'll see that at the end of this particular page, the way I did that. I've written the title of the month in just a more or less plain font. I like the way it turned out. And I am going to take this now and put plant stickers. We've got some hanging plants and I've got some stacks of books and some teapots and teacups to put on the desk. And then I will just take my Tombow marker. I actually had to pick a different color for this because I wanted some contrast between the top of the desk and the bottom. So the bottom of the desk is a tan, more of a tan color. Also a Tombow dual brush pen. And I had to go over it a couple of times just to get the right shade that I wanted for it. And I'm really happy with how this spread turned out. So now let's move on to the calendar. I absolutely love making calendars in my bullet journal, even if I don't use it a whole lot that much. Even if I don't use it a whole lot that month, I just like having it. And I like having a nice big 2-page calendar. If I need it, great. If I don't, I had fun making it and it was pretty to look at. So first what I'm doing is just marking out in pencil the dots that will form my calendar. I do the horizontal line and the vertical line, just the top and the left side. That way I know how big my boxes are going to be, but I'm also not trying to draw out every single box in pencil because that would just take forever and I really don't need to do that. So we're just marking out the dots. That way I know about how big everything's going to be. And as you see, this is kind of a long process. It always is, but I just need to count it out. Once I have my dots counted out and I'm happy with where they're placed, I take a fine liner and actually mark each dot in that nice strong black ink. That helps me see more clearly where I'm going. And then I'm drawing my lines. I have the bottom line first, so I know where to stop. And then I draw every line for each column except for the one all the way over to the very left. And that's so that when I go to draw my horizontal lines, I actually know where I'm starting. So the vertical line all the way on the left of the calendar is the last line that gets drawn. And that just helps me mark my dots, mark where I'm going, and I've found that it makes for a much smoother and more pleasant calendar making process. Otherwise, I actually really would hate making calendars. And really, it's long. It does take a little bit of concentration. Drawing the calendar itself isn't so much the fun part, but I enjoy decorating it, and I just like the way it looks to have a calendar at the start of every month. So I'm just making my lines. I am using just the dots to draw the lines more or less freehand. Sometimes they're a little bit wavy. Sometimes I have to go in and kind of redraw and correct the line. I have given up trying to cover up my mistakes. I honestly don't care that much. I did at the beginning, and now I'm just enjoying the process. So I'm taking my Tombow Fudenosuke hard-tipped brush pen and writing out March. And then I'm using the same pen to write the days of the week over top of each column. And it's just, again, that sort of straightforward font that I did the March title in. I didn't feel like being super swirly and fancy this month with my titles. It didn't seem to really fit the theme I was going for, so I just went with more of a straightforward thing. Taking that light brown Tombow and highlighting every other line along the edge of the calendar to make a tasks list. I didn't have one last month and I missed it, so I'm bringing it back. I might only ever have 2 tasks on there this month, but it's there and I enjoy it. And it helps me feel better to know that I have a place to write tasks that don't have a particular day or even week that need to get done. I've also made a YouTube growth tracker, just really small, really simple. I will probably at some point move this into a larger spread to go at the beginning of my journal. But for now, I just have it there so I can see where I started and where I end up at the end of the month. It may not change, it may. At this point, I'm really not that attached to it, but if it gets unhealthy, I will abandon the whole idea. I've taken that same light brown Tombow, made some circles in the top left-hand corner of each box of my calendar, and then written the dates in. And now I am just doing some extra coloring, colored in the little YouTube logo that I drew. And I'm highlighting with that same brown the days of the week. And then right now I'm doing a drop shadow on March. I did end up changing this later, and I don't remember if I actually showed that part in the video or not. But I did change that. You'll see with the next spread that I ended up with the rest of my titles sort of scribble highlighting them. And I actually really liked the way that looked. So to bring everything together, and because I thought with the brown it looked a lot better than the drop shadow, I ended up just scribbling over March in that light brown, and it looks much better. I'm adding some decorative stickers, some rows of books. And now we're going to move on to my habit and mood tracker. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I don't usually go for a sort of vertical cross page type of spread like this, but I really enjoyed it. At the top, we have the habit tracker. So I have habits on the top left-hand corner with some book stickers, and then mood on the bottom right-hand corner with a little plant sticker. I've taken the number line from the sticker sheet and I cut it in half, roughly. 31 days, you can't ever divide it exactly in half, but more or less in half while it was still on the sticker sheet. And then I stuck it on onto the notebook. That made peeling it off and actually cutting it where I wanted it much easier. I then drew in my key for my mood tracker. I have 5 levels. All 5 is the best mood, all the way down to 1 is the worst mood. And eventually I'm hoping it'll look like a row of books. Now I counted out 10 spaces underneath where my habit tracker will be. So I'll be tracking 10 habits this month. And I'm just drawing in what looks like a bookshelf, more or less. It's the same sort of brown filled in line to represent a bookshelf. I'm drawing in another bookshelf for where the mood tracker will be. And just coloring that in. And then I get to add stickers and fun decorations. I scribbled over the titles of habit and mood tracker. Again, just with that light brown color. I really like the way that looks. It gives me nice library type vibes. And now we're moving on to what is my favorite spread of this entire month. This is my March meal plan spread, and it's only the third meal plan spread I've ever made. I started making meal plans back in January of this year, and it's really helped my family stay on track in terms of eating well, and I'm just trying to figure out spreads that work best because having a place to physically write everything down really helps me organize my thoughts and concretely know what we're having for dinner and what I need to get in terms of groceries. So what I've done is I've made a Dutch door here. I counted out 8 spaces in and drew a line in pencil on each page so that I know where to cut and where to stop when I'm drawing. And right now I'm making my shopping list on the right hand side. So this is on the what ends up being the bottom page of the Dutch door spread. And then on the other side, I'm drawing a decorative panel with some bookshelves and again, just the cute little decorations. Mostly I went with plants and teacups, mugs, and some books. So like cookbooks, anything that I might have in a kitchen because this is a meal plan spread and it makes me think of a kitchen. And in my house, we also have books in the kitchen. Cookbooks, of course, but still books. So again, just kind of going with the cozy vibe. I did not break out the watercolors here. I really didn't feel like it. And I actually like the clean look of the white paper underneath this decoration. So again, I'm using the same method as before, where I draw each shelf, add the stickers, then draw the next shelf. It definitely makes the whole process slower, but it saves a lot of frustration later. And I think it ultimately ends up looking quite nice. Now that I have that done, I am just writing in week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4 at the top of each of my little Dutch door pages. And that way I have space to plan out the meals. And then I'm going to scribble over each of those in that light brown color, again to highlight, making all of my titles match. And I'm just going to write in the days of the week. I believe I gave about 4 or 5 rows in between each day. And that makes it take up just about all of the little page. I do think next month I will make the shopping list a bit wider, and so I'll make my Dutch door take up half the page instead of only 8 spaces. I don't need that much room for writing out the meals because I have so much vertical space, but it was good to experiment, and now I know, and next month I'll have more room to be able to create a shopping list that doesn't feel so cramped. So just continuing to write out each day, and then once all the days were written out, I again highlighted with that light brown Tombow. It's getting a good workout this month. And there it is. Next, we're going to move on to my ideas spread. I don't really like the title brain dump. I just don't like the way it sounds, and I don't like the amount of space it takes up to write it. However, I really like having a space for a brain dump of sorts, so I just call it ideas. I scribbled over the title in that light brown Tombow again, and then just drew a shelf and added some cute stickers, teapot, and mug. Oh, actually, no, sorry, that's a coffee pot and mug. You'll notice the coffee pot is full. It will stay that way. If you know me, you know that I do not handle coffee very well. So I'm continuing that shelf over to the next page, and on this page I'm writing playlist. Now, my playlist is a little different from how many other YouTubers I've seen who do plan with me videos make their playlists, because I don't fill my playlist out at the beginning of the month. I'm not making up a playlist now. Since I'm doing this part of the spread in February, I don't want to make a playlist of things that I'm enjoying in February. I want it to be things that I'm actually enjoying throughout the month of March. So this playlist will get filled in as I go along, and I'll fill it in with audiobooks, podcasts, music, movies, TV shows, anything that I'm really enjoying media-wise throughout the month of March. So it looks empty right now, but it will be full later. Next, we're going to make my daily review spread. And this is another Dutch door. I have come to very much appreciate the Dutch door and what it can do in terms of giving me enough space in my spreads. And this time, instead of cutting it vertically, I'm actually cutting about 6 or 7 rows off horizontally from the right-hand page. I'm taking that light brown Tombow now and highlighting every other line to give myself a nice guideline for when I'm writing, and just because I think it fills in the page nicely and makes it look cohesive. After I do that, I'm going to put in the numbers 1 to 31, and each day gets 4 lines, and this is why I need to make a Dutch door spread. I have tried the 1 line a day, and I really don't enjoy that. It just doesn't give me enough room, and even 2 lines a day still ends up feeling kind of cramped. I end up having a lot to say at the end, which you've no doubt noticed, because apparently for a quiet person, I talk a lot, and it's no different in writing. So by giving myself 4 rows per day and having that Dutch door spread there to allow for that amount of space, it really makes my journaling feel more pleasant. So now I'm continuing to highlight with that light brown Tombow, making the whole spread come together. And once that's done, we will begin decorating. I did have to go back in with the scissors and clean up the edge of my Dutch door a little bit. I really need to invest in a paper knife, which I say invest, it's not like they're super expensive. I just haven't gotten one yet. But I need to, because then I could actually use a ruler and it would be easier to create these Dutch doors and it would look much nicer. So now I'm just writing daily summary in the corner, misspelling summary and covering up my mistake very badly. One of these months I will actually learn how to spell summary and will do it correctly. Until then, these titles are always just going to be kind of messy. I'm drawing another bookshelf, and then I'm going to decorate that bookshelf with some cute stickers. Yep, there I am, cleaning up that Dutch door. All right, now I am just adding some nice stickers to add some decoration. Again, teapot, teacups, lots of teacups, and some potted plants, stack of books, all the usual things just to add some warmth and some coziness. And then I ended up choosing a quote to fill in that extra space at the bottom of my spread. And it's by Bill Patterson. Rainy days should be spent at home with a cup of tea and a good book. And I wholeheartedly agree. And now we're going to move on to my first weekly spread of March. So I'm only actually making this first monthly spread, or wow, this first weekly spread, because otherwise this video would be entirely too long. So I'm making all of my weekly spreads at once. I'm just showing the first one. I have the first sticker as a header with the dates, March 1 to 7. I like to start on Mondays. It just makes everything make so much more sense in my head. So once again, I am marking out in pencil where I want my dots to be. So how many days or how many dots tall each box will be. On the left-hand side of the page, I am making one row of boxes, this will be for my work schedule, any other events that I happen to have that day. So each day will get one box. And then on the right hand side, I'll be doing a sort of a rolling weekly, which I first heard about from Elizabeth over at the Plant-Based Bride, and I will link her video down below as she explains how to use the rolling weekly really, really well. I've gone back and forth between using it and not, and I really enjoy using it, especially when I'm going to be having a busier week or a busier month. And right now, especially with trying to get videos filmed and edited and everything else, I'm really enjoying having the weekly task list again. So now I'm taking more stickers, and I have some that show the day of the week. So we're just lining those up. And now on to drawing the weekly task list. I'm just making, again, that sort of bookshelf style line about 6 rows down. I am going to end up varying this throughout the month. If you want to see my other weekly spreads, follow me on Instagram. That's where I'll show them. And we're just going to label the days of the week, write tasks, put a line horizontally to divide them, and that is our task list. So now I'm just skipping ahead to make the monthly review page. I did this for February and really enjoyed it. So again, I'm taking a header sticker from the Plants and Pages collection from Planning with Kay, writing monthly review. And now I am just taking the light Tombow pen, and I'm drawing, using the dot grid to draw horizontal lines all down the page. And then what I'll do is I'll take the brush tip end and I will actually color in every other line, again, to create that sort of alternate highlighted line, which will help me keep my writing straight. I'm trying to decide which method I prefer when it comes to making this style of open writing page. When I just take the brush tip and move it along the dotted lines without having any sort of guide, I can often go crooked, and very crooked, and that does annoy me. At the same time, this method of drawing the lines and then coloring, while it gives me much straighter, more even lines, it also creates darker lines, especially with water-based ink like this. You end up getting shadows and all when inevitably, you go over a part that you just colored. So it'll mean that the lines are darker, which would make the writing itself not stand out as much. So I'm not sure which way I really prefer doing this. I may just have to try something different, or perhaps I will even say, you know what, I don't care, and just deal with the fact that some of my lines will be crooked. I'm really not sure. On the last page, I am just creating another quote page. I decided to draw a loose interpretation of the wall in what we're now calling our library. My mom and I just redid a room in our house to turn it into a sort of library slash guest room for the once in a blue moon we have guests. Um, and it just looks so nice. It's part of what inspired this entire monthly theme. It is warm and sunny and bright, and so I decided to do a very loose interpretation of the bookshelf in front of the window that is the wall that I usually face when I first walk into the room. So once again, I used my guidelines, dividing the page in half, and I'm using that to help me keep my bookshelf in the center of the page because I really wanted the bookshelf and the window to be centered on the page. And then once I finished my rough sketch in pencil, I then took my Tombow hard-tipped brush pen to do the outline. I really like the line variation and just that sort of thick, I don't know, illustrative maybe line that I get from using that pen. And I also like how bold it ends up looking. One thing I did realize here was that I went to put in a baseboard to sort of delineate where the wall stops and the floor begins. And that's when I realized that my bookshelf was crooked. So note to self, don't go don't go inking your outlines before you check to make sure that they're straight. Yeah. So anyway, that just ended up how it was. I don't think I would have really even noticed had I not decided I really wanted to separate the wall from the floor, but because I just had to put that baseboard in, it's pretty obvious that it's just completely crooked. But that's okay. So we live and learn. So I'm just drawing the window in pencil, and then again, I'll take my hard-tipped brush pen and draw the outline. And then March will be done. It's hard to believe, but I really enjoyed setting up all of this at once. Again, it just helps me feel more organized. If I set up all of my weeks at once, then any kind of hectic schedules, any kind of craziness in my own life doesn't keep me from still using my journal. And it doesn't feel like such a chore because I don't feel like I have to go in and set something up every single week because it's already done. As I said, I'm just not showing every week here because that would make for an extremely long video. And you guys really don't need to sit here for an hour watching me set anything up or set everything up. So follow me on Instagram if you want to see the entire setup. I will show that. I will also be sharing the habit and mood trackers as they go along. Finally, I just ended with one more quote. I love the smell of book ink in the morning by Umberto Eco. And now for the final flip through. We have my cover page, my March calendar, and then my habit and mood trackers. Next we have my Dutch door meal plan spread. Still my favorite spread of this whole setup. Ideas and playlist to be filled out later. A daily summary, also a Dutch door. And finally, we have my weekly spreads and monthly summary. So thanks for joining me, everyone. I hope you all have a great week. Have a great March, and I will see you next week. Thanks for all. Have a great week. Bye.